Welcome to Beats and Brews.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Dave Nestor, how you doing today, man?
Good, how are you? Good, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. A little bit winded from that beautiful jam.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, man. It's so weird always having single pedal, because I'm like you. I always like doing double, even if I'm not playing double for whoever I'm playing with.
I'm sorry I didn't set up the double for you.
No, you're fine.
I'm a terrible host.
No, it's good practice.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, buddy.
I filled that to the brim.
Yes.
Thank you
brews.
all for hanging out with us tonight. Nick Sabo's ready for some beats. What's up, Brad?
Hello, Brad.
So, in true Beats and Brews fashion, if you guys have any questions out there, feel free to. I'm going to try to get to all of them. So if you're thinking anything, write it down. We're watching. We want to engage with you guys as much as possible. But we're just really thankful that you're all here watching, or
Indeed.
out there in the internet world. So with that being said, Dave, you've been around the scene for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Are you comfortable right now? Do you need to move anything around?
No, you're good.
Okay.
You said I had to speak directly in, so I'm trying to make sure I am.
Yeah, I made that mistake the first episode. I was like way back here, and afterwards everyone's like, yeah, we couldn't really hear you that much.
Yeah, no worries.
So
I will talk all day right up in this
Yes.
thing. Okay, cool.
let me move this down a little bit.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Hopefully you guys all have brews too. If not, cheers with whatever you're drinking. Water's cool. No one has to drink. That is a PC thing.
Want everyone to see my beautiful face. I've been rehearsing for several gigs, like 45 tunes. You know a thing or two about trying to get a bunch of tunes in order, and
Yeah.
So my setup's been a little different.
Totally get it.
Anyways, so man, tell us about yourself. How'd you get started playing drums?
Well, I was friends with a lot of my local band buddies that ended up being long-term friends even to this day, and I would go to shows, but I never played.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to pick up drums in junior high, didn't really work out. I gave up pretty quickly. I didn't want to read sheet music. I didn't want to do the marching band thing.
Yeah.
Looking back, I regret a lot of that, but I've been able, YouTube and lessons every now and then, and guys who've been playing a lot longer than I have.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good advice, teaching me rudiments and good practice routines, which is really the whole goal of, marching band, especially if I was going to be doing snare. So my friend's band, they kind of broke up, and I was always around. I would help sell merch, just go to all the shows.
Uh-huh.
I was that guy for that band. And when they needed a drummer, they were like, well, you started to pick up a little bit. Do you want to do it again? And I was like, yeah. So ended up getting a Franken kit from a friend, a bunch of different kinds of drums, didn't match, didn't sound good, it didn't matter. My parents hated it, but started to kind of just teach myself how to play, watching videos and also practicing with the guys in my band, because a couple of them used to play drums. So that helped a ton. They gave me a lot of advice. But we did our first show. We were called Words as Weapons.
Was this a metal band or a hard rock band or what?
Emo, screamo.
Oh, sweet.
That's what we call it.
All right. I can dig it.
We really wanted to be like Under Oath or Brand New.
Love both of those bands.
So my parents filmed our first show at 180 Skate Park in Huber Heights. It used to be a venue that all these local bands used to play.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, for me personally, I'm not going to insult the other guys in the band, but it was bad.
Yeah.
I was rushing, especially after fills. I wasn't breathing.
Not playing to a click.
Not playing to a click, no. And I was doing vocals back then, too.
Oh, wow.
I really wanted to be Aaron Gillespie when I first started.
Didn't we all?
Yeah. Like with playing and with singing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Respect, Aaron Gillespie, you're awesome. But in any case, yeah. So after watching that first show, I was like, I'm going to practice way more, right? I'm going to get behind the kit, just have the sticks in my hand at all time, playing as loud as I can, as soft as I can, just learning everything, listening to Under Oath and As I Lay Dying and all these heavy metal bands.
Yeah.
I started with double kick, which most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
So that was different for me. So now I'm trying to do more single kick stuff the older I get. So I'm going backwards.
That's funny how that works, right?
Yeah, but yeah, so I started just because my friend's band needed a a drummer because they broke up and we're starting a new one, and it's kind of how it took off from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so from there, did you just start meeting new people within the scene and started to be asked to be someone else's drummer? And
No, not for a long time. So our band kind of changed directions. We were a screamo band. Then we got rid of screaming. Respect to my buddy Colin. Sorry we got rid of you. It's a long story from a long time ago. We're still friends, which is cool because we were all immature idiots back then anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we changed from Words as Weapons to a band called Me in the Making. So we went from being like screamo to more pop punk.
Oh, cool.
And when that happened, I definitely had already developed a lot more in my playing. I still to this day will always have more to learn, but I was comfortable to be able to play shows. We used a click track, which helped because I didn't build my own personal metronome yet. It still helps with some people, but if you have a natural metronome and the band all plays together, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
Do you prefer to play without a click?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's more organic. And if there's no backing tracks, the drummer should be able to keep the tempo, in my opinion. It does help, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but my personal preference is no click.
Fair enough. Yeah, everyone's a little bit different, so it's cool to see what your preference is.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it for so long, playing to a click, through churches, through bands I've played with. But most of the fill-in gigs I do with like cover band stuff, they hardly ever use a click.
Yeah.
So that was kind of refreshing, because then they relied on me. So if we were off or too fast or too slow, I need to practice.
It's on you. Yeah.
Which is fine.
Fair enough. What I like to do is I look up the studio BPM, and then I'll put that in my charts, and so I've got a good starting point, so I don't get like too excited for a gig and start rushing or whatever. So usually I'll start off with that click and the actual tempo. But every band's a little bit different, and some people always want to have like 5 or 10 BPM faster than the record. Or
Right. Can I set this on the snare?
Yeah, of course.
You sure? Okay.
I'm not too picky.
I wanted to make sure.
So yeah, it's interesting to see what you prefer.
Yeah, I mean, I know that everyone has their own way of learning. Mine has always just been muscle memory, so the repetition. I probably shouldn't say too much about charts and stuff because I know that's like the standard in Nashville. But it's not my preference. Mine is always going to be audibly. That's how I've always learned. Visually, I guess different patterns, and when I read sheet music, it does help. But to be honest with you, I would probably learn a song faster within 5 to 10 minutes of hearing it after listening to it over and over and over.
A million times.
Compared to reading a sheet of music.
Yeah.
That's just me personally.
Yeah.
I'm not insulting anyone that does it that way, because I know that's actually pretty much the standard from what I've been told when it comes to like hired guns. They'll send you the charts. Right.
Fair enough. Yeah. So when I was in like high school and college, I would do the same thing. I would just we would rehearse all the time, a couple practices a week, and then if I had to learn a new song like from one of our records or a previous record that I wasn't a part of, I'll just listen to it over and over and over again and play along to the record. And now the older that I get and the more gigs and the more songs that I have to learn, I'm finding myself charting them. But I don't do the number system like Nashville.
Okay.
It's kind of like a hybrid, and it's also like color coded. And
Really?
It's like if anyone else saw my notes, they'd be like, "What the heck is this?"
You need to show me that
But
before I leave. Then.
I definitely will. But it
Sounds
works for me,
interesting.
and I always have like a quick reference of the studio tracks BPM and like a quick feel like a train beat or 4 on the floor or whatever. And then the general outline of the song with lyrics, actually.
Really?
Because I rely heavily off of lyrical cues, so I kind of know where I'm at in the song, or like if there's a pause or a break coming up. Just something I've noticed. Lyrical cues are big for me.
I'm with you there, but I don't have to necessarily see it written down, so just audibly. Same idea.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's a different realm, but definitely in the same group.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are watching right now, feel free to comment, feel free to like, feel free to share. Sharing is caring. On to the next question. So you've played with so many people, a lot of different styles, everything from metal to country, to just straight up rock. Can you tell me who all you're involved with playing with right now?
Yeah, currently only Aaron Lewis, and that tour starts in May, and we kind of have dates throughout the rest of the year.
Okay.
Besides that, no other gigs currently. I have some studio stuff because I have a setup at my house where I record.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have some artists that I'm going to be recording for. A couple of them don't have names yet.
Okay.
Still pretty new. And the other ones I'll wait to talk about till I know for sure that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Besides that, I was doing some fill-in gigs every now and then, like Billy Brown, guys that you play for or have in the past. And that's all kind of gone to the wayside for now because I got to focus on the upcoming gig.
Yeah.
So studio stuff I'm cool with, and I have good opportunity, and I'm finally, just like your setup is sick here, and
Thank you.
I'm still working on my mic setup, but it's sufficient to get some pretty good tones out of my drum studio.
Yeah.
So besides that, Until Rust is a band that I play with quite often in the Dayton area. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, just through following you.
Okay, cool. They are really good acoustic duo, but shout out to Shane and Rob and Norm. Norm Lilly, he plays bass when we do full band stuff. But those guys have written some amazing music, and I hope that eventually we can do full band stuff to it. That'll take time and money because you know how it can cost money to record. But we do some cover band gigs, and we try to throw in some originals here and there or whatever. But I don't think we're going to squeeze a show in before I have to leave, unfortunately. And because of this gig being mostly weekends, I don't think I can play with them until maybe the end of the year. We'll see.
Yeah.
We're going to try to squeeze a gig or two in. So
that'll be awesome.
I'll have to let you know. Yeah. Until Rust is a lot of fun. And I play a smaller kit, kind of like yours here, with an 18 by 16 kick drum.
Nice.
12 by 4. So it's almost like a pancake
Okay.
rack. And then a 14 by 10 floor.
14 by 10.
And
Wow.
then the snare that came with it, it's a blonde maple snare. It's like a 12 by 5. So it's small. And it's all mounted. So they're all like,
That's really cool.
yeah. So you know, you told me this was a snare. So it's the same idea as that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
Probably.
is that through Spawn?
It is a Spawn kit. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Was that a custom build or?
No, he had it on his showroom floor for a while because he wanted the micro kits to kind of take off because they've gotten really popular.
Yeah.
So that was his showroom kit for a while. And instead of building one, I just liked the way it looked. It's a dark walnut stain with all black gloss hardware.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. So I just was like, I'll just buy that, man.
Right on.
So I do have an endorsement through them, but I still purchased the drums. Just a discount.
That's great.
Yeah, man.
So first off, congrats with the Aaron Lewis gig.
Thank you, man.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
How did you get introduced to him and his crew? And so this is a new development. So could you explain a little bit how this all came to be?
Yes. It basically came about because of my drum teching career. So I still am a drum tech on the side, and I'm hoping that I can do that while playing because it's a really good way to get more work, first of all.
Yeah.
And I get to play with drums, which is a lot of fun. Drum
It's
nerds
the
like to
dream.
play with drums, right?
Yeah.
So I did a tour. I worked with Korn last year, and we did a tour with Stained. And it was an all-summer amphitheater tour for the most part. We had 1 or 2 inside shows. So I met the Stained crew and the guys in Stained, and we all hit it off. They're awesome people. Just connected through that. So being on tour with a group, even if you aren't in that crew for that group, you still get to know each other really well.
Yeah.
They can see that you're able to tour, that you can hang, and they saw my work ethic. It was a hard tour for me, which would take way too long to explain. But there was a lot going on in the background, and shout out to Ray Luzier, one of my favorite drummers, good dude, great guy to work for. But through all of my hard work and being able to hang out and just getting to know everybody, it kind of developed into relationships with some of the Stained crew and the guys in Stained, and that's kind of basically exactly how it happened.
That's awesome.
So Aaron's had his solo project for a while, and he had a band that he used for a really long time. I don't know what the reasoning is, but their drummer decided to step down. And so when that happened, I got the call pretty much immediately from their musical director.
Wow.
Asking if I was interested, and I was like, well, yeah, of course, because we had so many talks, and I told him, like, obviously my goals are not to be the tech forever. That's a respectful field and respectable field, and it's a great way to make a living, and that's something I've been proud to be able to do, but that's not been my end goal.
Yeah.
So the dream is to play, and I'm finally getting a chance to be seen as the player, and I'm excited for the opportunity. So yeah, it was all from networking because of tours I've done in the past.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so stoked for you and excited about your future playing, being the drummer.
Yeah, man.
And
Thank you.
just as you said, it is a super respectable field. There's so much that goes on in the background with touring and putting on concerts that the average person doesn't know about. And all the people behind the scenes are just as important as the people on the stage, and everyone works together to make it happen. And the fact that you're on kind of both sides of the coin that's great, and it's makes you that much more valuable of a person and a player, and just it's really cool to see that you're going that you're still doing the drum tech, but now you're playing drums.
Yeah, man.
So that's great.
I've always done that locally, but it's kind of hard to do the crisscross once you've reached a certain level in the industry. And it's been not an easy road, but I think it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
Work, is definitely something that everyone needs to know they need to do. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you just got lucky." No, sir. It's been a long road, but
exactly
well worth it.
And also, you could have focused 100% on just playing drums. But then if you made it to a level of having the opportunity of, not a little bit, had the opportunity of going on tour after that, you may have never known that you really liked tour. So that can be difficult as well, because just being on a bus with 11 other people it's got to be extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's not as glamorous as what people think. Don't get me wrong, I've done the van tours too, and that's even harder because you're crammed in a van, and a lot of times, depending on the budget of the tour, you don't always get a hotel room. You're relying on the venues to have showers. You're relying on sometimes fans to let you sleep on their floor. I've done those tours too. I'm imagining you have as well, but I'm not sure. Okay. So it's kind of like, I know a lot of people in the industry that never did the van stuff. A lot of them actually started on buses.
Wow.
And started at the arena or stadium levels.
That's
and
nice.
I'm like, you guys have no idea what it's like to do this other stuff.
Yeah.
But even with that being said, you're correct. It's not all glitz and glamour. It's not a nonstop party. A lot of the people that I work with work 10 to 12-hour days, if not longer.
Yep. And they're away from family and their wives and kids. And
so it's a long day sometimes, and also you're away from home.
Wow.
It's not for everybody. And you'll know pretty quickly if the road is for you or not within like a week.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So with that being said, can you tell me what a typical day out on tour as a drum tech looks like for you?
So after the tour is already established and you're like out doing your normal routine, which means you've already been through all your production rehearsal, the band rehearsal, you have all your gear lined up. Hopefully you have everything you need inventory wise, which is another part of the gig. A lot of times you got to order things to get drop shipped to a hotel you're going to be at or a venue you're going to be at. That's always a challenge, especially with COVID, because supply is just crazy right now. Another story. I won't go on that tangent. But a typical day for a backline guy, usually load in kind of depends on the venue and also depends on if you're headlining. So I'll just give an example. When I was working with Korn, we were the headliner for our Stained summer tour. So it's Korn, Stained, and a few other openers, and they kind of rotated who was opening. The headlining band we usually load in first. So you have your staging, your rigging, your lighting, and your PA. All of that gets loaded in first. So you have your semis that bring in all of that gear. So you have all your riggers, your lighting guys, your sound guys, and all of your stage guys come in first. So you have like your different stage calls, right? Your different times. Usually it starts around 6 or 7 in the morning. And those guys are all there between 7 and 9, depending on when they call you. Backline usually doesn't have to come in until about 10 or 11.
Okay.
It's not because we have less to do necessarily. It's just a different job. So we have to wait till the stage is set up before we can set up our gear.
Makes sense.
So it makes sense logistically. So once everything is set up, hopefully, depending on who you're working for, our drums lived on the riser for the most part, but it's split in half. So we would roll that onto stage from the semi, put the riser together, and then all the cymbals got packed away and some of the toms got packed away.
Mhm.
So I would get everything out. If it was changing head day, I would do snares almost every day. But toms would be every other or every 3, depending on supply.
Wow. Okay.
So supply was a big deal, especially with the summer tour. Ray Luzier, the drummer for Korn, hits very hard. So we had to replace the heads more often than I would for, say, Danny from Greta Van Fleet.
Mhm.
Just different styles of drumming.
Yeah.
But the summer with heat, you know very well, it affects your heads a lot more than playing inside any clubs or arenas or whatever. So I would have to stretch the heads as long as I could. We would try to get 3 days out of the toms, but sometimes he hits so hard it's like I have to change the heads, man.
Yeah.
Those things are beat. It's hard to get a good tone out of it when there's too many dents, which you probably understand
For sure.
too. So at 10, we would load in all of our gear, do our head changes, string changes. The guitar guys would set up, bass would set up, drums would set up, and then I would also set up the playback rig because I was doing playback for them as well.
Mhm. Is that Ableton?
No, we were running Digital Performer,
Okay.
which is just another DAW that they use for live. That was kind of the standard for a while there. I'm not sure why, but I know in country it's more Ableton, and a lot of people are going to Pro Tools too.
Okay.
Which I don't think is really live friendly, personally, but another tangent.
What's your preference?
I've ran Ableton for country bands I've worked for. It's really user friendly.
Okay.
So I would say Ableton probably. Digital Performers that's what I use for Manson and for Korn, so I know it pretty well.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest to use, but it gets the job done.
Okay.
So yeah, then after that, we would try to get everything lined up and ready. By 1 or 2, we would do a line check. The band, if they were going to sound check that day, they would come in at 3. If not, if we were all line checked and ready to go, the stage was marked because we have a stage manager that marks where everything goes.
Nice.
Then we would move everything back for the other bands. And then we'd put like a drape over top of everything or just a curtain, move everything back behind the curtain, and then the next band would get the stage around 3 or 4.
Wow.
Yeah. That's usually how it would go for like our amphitheater tours. And then we would wait until those bands were done. Normally stage hands would help load bands on and off. But if we were free and they needed help, we would jump in and do that too.
Okay.
And then about 20 to 30 minute changeover times before the headliner. So Stained would get off stage, and then we would drop the kabuki, which I don't know if you know what that is. It's just a big drape that hangs in front of the stage. Sorry, keep going away from the mic. Hangs in front of the stage to kind of block our stage setup until they're ready to play. Then an intro plays in the.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Da, 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 da.
Yep. And then it just drops so you can see the band. So we would set up everything, move the drum riser forward, move all the amps forward, and then wait for the band to get up there, make sure we're all good. We would give the thumbs up to the tour manager, who would check everybody's station, make sure we're all good to go, and start the show. And I would push play on the playback for the intro.
Wow.
Yeah.
And from there, does it keep on rolling, or do you have
No.
to stop it?
No, because they don't use clicks or backing tracks for every song.
Okay.
Only about 4 or 5 songs, depending on the set. Sometimes they would change it, but it would be for like intros and interludes. So I would actually look to Ray, and him and I would do cues together.
Wow.
So I would start and stop songs. We even had a track that we cut in half, and I would start it and then stop it and then wait for his 3 count to come back in, because we'd have the crowd do a chant. It was actually very interactive.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that show would last about an hour and 15 minutes. Then when the band is off stage, they wouldn't drop a kabuki or anything for us to pack up. We would just start packing up. But backline has to get off stage first. So we're last on stage, but we're first off stage. Makes sense the way the semis line up.
Yeah.
So we would have to pack up as quickly as possible to get off stage, so then everybody else can do their job and get the lights down, get the PA down. Because most people don't know, but big tours like that, you actually take the line array speakers and the PA system with you. The lights and everything, they go with you. So they're traveling in semis, and they get taken apart every night.
All
put in
self-contained.
semis. Yep.
Right on.
So it's a lot of work. So we make, like, it seems like there's a big gap in the middle where there's nothing to do. But when it's time for us to go,
It's go time.
we got to be on it. Yeah. So that's usually how the day works. And then we'd be done with our part, and we'd get off the stage and out of the way, because we don't want to be hindering anybody else's progress and getting done at a certain time. And then try to get a shower before bus call if you can. Get some after show food, usually whatever's convenient, pizza, Jimmy John's. They'd usually have it on the bus for us.
That's nice.
And then we'd roll by 2 or 3 depending on the drive.
Wow.
Same thing the next day.
So if backline doesn't have to be in until about like 10 or 11, does your workday start around that time, or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It depends. So the semis get dumped. That's what they call it, when they just unload them. If I need to do more to the kit than normal or program more on the computers, I will get to work as soon as I wake up.
Gotcha.
So hopefully the semi will be dumped so I have access to my gear, but that doesn't always happen. So sometimes you're in a little bit of a rush, but if you know how to do the gig, you can schedule it to where it's, okay, I know the semi is going to dump early today or next Thursday, or I know in between line check and showtime I can work on stuff then.
Yeah.
There's always good ways to manage your time, but you got to figure that out. That's one of the things, finding out how to work on tour is not easy because you have to be really good at time management.
I bet.
Yeah.
Man, I have so many questions just about like the gear.
Open it
up.
Hopefully I have good answers.
Okay.
We'll see.
So Ray and the drum heads that he uses,
Mhm.
are they're clear Remos? Is that or
When I worked with him, he was using color tones, clear Remo color tones.
okay, right on.
Yeah.
So as a drummer yourself,
Mhm.
and as someone that's worked with a boatload of other people,
He's got a list.
Greta Van Fleet, Korn, Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie, All That Remains, Whitechapel, Atreyu.
Mhm.
Any other bands I'm missing as far as your drum tech career?
Not on tour. I helped bands on festivals, like stage managing, and then maybe helping do like backline kits, but nothing official. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Here and there.
you've worked with a lot of drummers,
Mhm.
and you have to work with the equipment that they prefer and that they like, and then you also have your personal preference.
Yep.
When it comes to the gear that you choose to use, through all the wear and tear that you've seen, do you have any certain go-tos and companies that you are comfortable shouting out or endorsing, if you will?
Yeah. So I was an Evans guy for a long time, and I still use Evans for my kit at home. That's just my preference for the way I like to play and the way my tone is. I see you have a mixed bag, but Remo is actually a little more versatile from my experience because I was limited. I was trying to use a good example for All That Remains when I was working for Jason Costa. He was their drummer, or is their drummer. He used this really nice Thomas Star Classic Babinga kit, and it was like a 20-inch kick, 10, 12, 16, and then he had a couple different snares we rotated. One was a nickel over brass, and then he did have the matching Babinga snare, which I told him he should always use that one because it sounded amazing. But we rotated heads. He only used G2s for the top heads for the longest time. And I told him, I was like, you need to try these level 360 EC2s, or you need to try coated, these UVs or whatever. I tried to rotate to see what he would like better. We got a really good tone out of the EC2s, but they weren't consistent. So we went back to the G2s, and it worked out better, actually. But he had an endorsement, so we weren't able to use any other heads, really. We could have, but we didn't. But from my experience with Remo, for Danny's kit from Greta Van Fleet, we tried 4 different sets of heads on his kit that they're using right now. It's the 70s Ludwig kit, and it's concert toms. So it's like a 24-inch kick, a 14 by 13-inch rack.
Wow.
It was a 16 by 15 and an 18 by 16, and they all had no bottom heads. My first time ever doing a kit without bottom heads.
Did you like that? Because it was like
I did,
one less head to change.
It was, well, yes and no. It kind of depends. So like bottom heads are a preference thing. Top heads are more of a necessity to changing. I've worked with guys that say don't touch the bottom head this entire tour. I've worked with other guys that are like every other week change the bottom heads.
Wow.
So it's been kind of hit or miss.
What do you think about the bottom head?
I've always used them, and I think I like them better than not having it, but it was fun to have that experience and kind of learn. So I took all the lugs apart and had to kind of get new parts and stuff because it was an older 70s kit that needed some work. So we completely detailed the kit, and once I did and got new hoops and new tension rods and lubed everything up so it had good movement for tuning, we were able to make it sound really, really good.
Awesome.
But we ended up going with just Remo Emperors for all the toms. Yeah. Single. Sounded great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coated?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love the vintage Emperors. That's like that's my go-to.
Nice.
And when you find something that works, especially like if you don't have an endorsement, you just there's not a lot of wiggle room for experimentation at this level, I feel like. So it's like, hey, something works. I'm almost 9 times out of 10 going to get Remo Emperors or Vintage Emperors, and that's my go-to. But I've also got a mixed bag with the coated and the clears as well.
Nice.
What heads do you prefer to use?
So on my kit right now, I have still actually the stock heads that Brian gave me, Brian Spawn, the owner of Spawn Drums, with the kit. And I think they were just the Evans hydraulic, I think. But it has like his drum logo printed on them.
Nice.
So I actually prefer the EC2s because I'm using a maple kit and I think they sound great. That's an Evans head. But the reason I like, it's weird, I wish I could have Remo tom heads and Evans snare heads because I'm a huge fan of the Evans HD Dry. I think it's the best snare head out there, personally, because it works with every kind of snare I've worked with. Metal, wood, all kinds of wood and all kinds of metal. But I've been able to get a consistent, even tone because the little holes that are around the head, have you seen them?
Honestly, I'm a Remo guy.
Okay.
The only Evans I've ever really played are because they come stock with SJC.
Okay.
And so like the Evans that you see there, like that's the stock head. And
gotcha.
I've actually really enjoyed them. I feel like the coating seems to last a little bit longer on the coated heads.
Okay.
But that's just with my little bit of experience with my personal drums.
I gotcha.
But no, I'm not familiar with the holes.
Okay, so the HD Dry, I do like the Emperor X coated for snares too. That's a good one. But the HD Dry has little tiny holes drilled around the entire top head. So you know how a lot of snares have vent holes, obviously?
Yeah.
Most of them have at least one. But I've seen ones that have giant vent holes around them or whatever. I've never really liked the tone of those snares.
Okay.
But I would say 1 or 2 vent holes with an HD Dry that has the holes around the top. You might not even need a snare weight, might not even need any sort of mutes or anything.
Wow.
You can still get a really good tone out of it.
Speaking of muting techniques, are you a fan? Or does it just depend on the song, the artist, the kit?
I'm a fan because you don't know... if you have a good sound guy, they might put gates on the drums anyway, so you might not have to worry about too much resonance.
Okay.
But if you can control the sound before it gets to the microphone, the sound guy will like you better, from my experience, because you're not having any sort of high overtones or any sort of weird wonky noises, because it does help with that. It gets rid of the overtones. So, I mean, when it comes to having more dead toms, from my experience, that's easier for the sound guys to deal with.
Makes sense.
I know you got the big fat snare drum
yeah,
stuff.
I love these
Those
things.
are so cool. I just ordered one because I'm going to be hopefully doing a side snare for some lower stuff for Aaron.
Oh, sweet.
And I'm going to be using one of those
That's awesome,
to
man.
help deaden it. But
I really love these. Sometimes I feel like it's a little bit of a crutch for tuning because you could take a crappy sounding drum and like throw one of these big fat snare drums on it and it just automatically sounds better, in my opinion.
It's not cheating. That's just a solution.
Yeah.
What if you have a drummer that can't tune? Just have
a
those
problem.
with you at all times. Just throw one on. Right?
There you go.
So
I really love these. And I've also really started to enjoy the snare weights as well.
Yeah. I got a small one. I got the little tiny like 3 or 4 inch leather one that's like brown leather on my snare now. I really like it.
Yeah, I enjoy those. There's pros and cons to both. Sometimes I like the openness of not having. I like the feel of not having a big fat snare drum on there.
Okay.
I like the rebound. Sometimes I want to feel the rebound a little bit more, and so usually I'll just put like a snare weight on it. But then sometimes you want that deep tone, and the snare weights aren't really good for that. They're not intended for it.
Right,
so
right.
I go back to the big fat snare drum.
I mean, it's obviously they're good at what they do.
Yeah,
a lot of people are using them,
and very nice people.
Are they? Okay.
They've even bought like my drumstick bottle openers.
They really?
And have and went through like a trial endorsement for a year with them, and just very great people. And so they've supported me a little bit. I've supported them, and
That's
just
cool,
an
man.
awesome company. I've recommended so many people to Big Fat Snare Drum, and
Nice.
just great product.
Good, man.
Mr. Brad Hopper has a question. Dave, are there ambient mics set up on stage for drummers to hear bandmates with their in-ear monitors? Curious what big acts use.
All right, so a lot of the time there are ambient mics for bigger bands that actually face the crowd for guys that use in-ears. But when it comes to bandmates talking to each other, they call that a talkback microphone. So like right now, Aaron and I are talking to each other on talkback microphones.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not doing vocals live, but you always see a drummer have like a microphone, a lot of the time he might have a foot switch that when he pushes it in, he can then use the microphone to talk to his bandmates or count people in. That is one of the things that is really important at a certain level, in my opinion, to be able to communicate not only from bandmate to bandmate, but from crew to bandmates as well, or from crew to other crews. So like if I'm behind the drummer making sure that he doesn't fall over dead or something a little less negative, I can't communicate to the front of house guy. But if I need to, I can't just sit there and text him. So a lot of times we even have our own talkbacks between crew members.
Nice.
To make it like easier for people to know what's going on. So like, for example, the playback rig I used for Korn, some of the cables jiggled out in transit or during the stage because everything's vibrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had about 4 inputs come out. So when I pushed play for a song, there were certain parts of the song that weren't playing that those inputs were in charge of playing. So immediately, Ray was like, cut the track. We're not going to use the track. We're just going to go natural. I was like, cool.
Do it live.
So as soon as that happened, it was like, cool. I stopped it, and then I went behind the playback rig with my flashlight trying to figure out what was going on. Saw that these cables were barely jiggled loose. I checked all the cables, checked every single cable. There's about 100 or 120, something like that in the back. So once I was done checking everything, the monitor guy ran over to me, and he said, is everything okay? And I was like, yes, this is why I need a talkback microphone. And after that, they always gave me a talkback.
Good.
So there was only a couple shows where I didn't have it, and I was like, I need this to let you guys know when something happens.
Yeah, that's important.
Because I know, just a drum tech has been something I've heard for a long time, which is hilarious because they're very important. But the playback is also very important too. Normally, bands at that level have one person doing playback and one person doing drums.
Mm-hmm.
But when you wear multiple hats, you got to be doing multiple things. It's a lot to take on, but if you're willing to do it, it can be pretty beneficial. So yeah. Talk back microphones. That's what they're for.
Did you guys, personal question, so you guys didn't have any sort of like comm system like internally with the tour or radios?
Right. So radios do work normally when no other noise is going on.
Gotcha.
So how loud the venues can be, there's almost no way we can talk, especially like if I want to say something to the monitor guy or front of house.
You're behind Ray.
They have so much. Ray hits really hard. But besides that, there's so much noise. And I know Ray's the only guy in the band that uses in-ears.
Okay.
So there's monitors in front of Monkey. There's monitors in front of JD.
So it's a loud stage.
In front of Head. It's a loud stage. Very loud stage.
Well,
something to keep in mind. Every band is different. So every situation is always going to be different. But yeah, radios are really useful before the show or when there's no music going on.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Brad, thank you so much for that question. Brad's also going to be on the show at some point as well.
Yeah, Brad's a great drummer. Hi, Brad. Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm looking through here.
Thank you, Nick.
Good old Benny Jackson kick. Come with the kick drum.
Oh my God.
I
awesome.
love that movie.
Dustin.
Matt Davis, Mariana.
Mindy. Hello, Mindy.
John, what's up, John? Hope you're rocking out there in
Belinda.
the free world.
Yeah, Belinda.
Steve Jackson. What's up, cousin Scotty? Good old Adam Ralston. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Having such a great time here with my buddy Dave.
Yo.
Man, so many questions. Such little time.
Ask away, and I'll try not to make the answer so long.
Let me
Sorry,
just.
everybody. It's probably boring if you're not a drummer.
How about this?
I'm just kidding.
What does your typical off day look like? Do you visit any breweries? What do you seek out?
Yes, breweries. So if I'm lucky enough to have my girlfriend visit, she'll go to breweries with me. But normally what I try and do is I know, cool, I have a day off in St. Louis. I'm going to go to Schlafly or another brewery that I've been to that I know has good food, good beer. But I almost always try to find a new one. And I've been to hundreds of breweries. But one of the things I've noticed after the pandemic is breweries, this is an ad for every brewery out there, have always had the best customer service, the best food out of most restaurants I go to, and obviously the best beer. So something to keep in mind on tour. But yeah, you can visit so many breweries. And on this last tour, when Jake got sick from Greta Van Fleet, we had so many days off until the tour ended up getting canceled or rescheduled, that I visited probably too many breweries.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 days in a row. I was like, I need to do something. I need
with
salad.
Yeah.
No more beer, just salad. But yeah, I mean, breweries are definitely a go-to. Especially towards the end of this last tour, I started to get back into a good workout routine, trying to cut a few pounds and just be healthy in general. So like most hotels have like a small gymnasium, so I try and go do some cardio, and if there's a pool, I'll do some swimming. And the other thing too, to save money, because I'm all about saving money, is walking as far as I can before I need to order an Uber to whatever brewery I'm going to be at. Because
there you go.
Not every hotel we stay at is convenient when it comes to location. So I've walked, 4 or 5 miles before, and then I'll Uber it back because there's no way I'm going to walk 5 more miles.
Wow.
But there have been times where it's like, man, it's a great day, scenery, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a good way to do it.
So when you get your tour advance and you know which days you're off, then do you coordinate that with your girlfriend? Like, hey, this would be a great off day. Like, we're in a cool city, and so she'll get like a plane ticket, and you already know that you're going to be put up in a hotel or something. And
Yep. So depending on the band you work for, I've been pretty fortunate to be able to work for bands I have worked for. And so normally I do get my own hotel room on days off.
Awesome.
Doesn't always happen that way, but I'm, like I said, very fortunate for that. So when that happens, if we only have to pay for her plane ticket or for her to drive, it saves us so much money.
I bet.
But usually we try to go to cities that she hasn't been to, or if I know I have more than one day off, that's when she'll come, because then she knows she can stay for more than one day.
Yeah.
There have been times where she's drove, 3 or 4 hours, but had to drive back that same day, and that's just not ideal. I don't want to make her do that,
come to one city and then go to the next, like on another show date or something?
Yeah, with All That Remains, she did do that in 2019. I think it was from Illinois to Indiana. So I think we had it was Chicago, then Joliet, and then we did Fort Wayne, I think, something like that. So
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so she came for the day off in between Chicago and Joliet, and then came to the Joliet show and the Indiana show, I think, and then went home.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool that you've been able to have your tour life and then also mingle it with your personal life and kind of marry the two and make the best of both worlds, because when you're out on the road and you don't see your family, your girlfriend, your friends, you got to find creative ways to make it work.
Yep. It's not easy.
I'm sure it's not. And it's also not cheap to do that either, I'm sure. So there's definitely there's a huge sacrifice to go out on the road, and you got to find ways to keep sane, and I'm sure it's every bit worth it to just see a friend and your girlfriend and family just for like a day.
Yeah, that's been super beneficial. And besides that too, trying to put out, because you and I have been friends online for a while, so you notice I put out probably way too much drum content. Because of that, there's a lot of work behind that, which I know you totally understand how that works. So like before this last Greta tour, I knew I was going to be gone for months on end. So I recorded, I don't even know how much, probably 7 or 8 hours worth of material in one day.
So you could like post
changing outfits, doing whatever. And I just kept all of it on my external hard drive until my first day off. And I knew I could use that day to edit. So my laptop is pretty, it's not very good. I need to get a new laptop, but they're expensive. But my home computer is really good when it comes to editing. So usually I can edit really fast, but on days off, I was able to like take my time with it, let it load, because those editing programs take forever. But yeah, so I would have all the video and all the audio recorded on my external hard drive and just use those days off if Carrie couldn't come visit to strictly just edit, and then have all of that content to be able to release while I was on tour.
That's smart.
I never did that really in the past, so.
Well, you're
I'm
learning.
Yeah.
Learning. And you're also staying productive on the road and not just getting involved with whatever binge drinking or whatever else you hooligans do on your days off. So you're staying, you're still staying busy and
trying to,
doing things for your drumming career at the same time, also while like being out and supporting a tour.
Yeah. Yeah, and you definitely. I'm glad you asked about the brewery thing because it is very important to take time for yourself.
Yes.
So if my girlfriend can't visit, I'll still go to a brewery and I'll still be by myself. I'll put in my headphones, watch drum videos, or just socialize with brewery people.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. It's good to kind of get away from everybody too. And some of the times the guys would text me and ask me to come out, and I would feel bad for not doing it. But sometimes you just need to decompress because I'm with them all of the time on the bus, in catering,
Mm-hmm.
all of that.
Too much time.
Too much time. Sometimes
The hang is important.
It is.
If you can't hang, then it's not a good tour for you.
No.
But quiet time, your personal time is just as important,
Mm-hmm.
and especially for your mental health.
Oh yeah, man, that's very important. So yeah, good food, good beer is very important.
Amen to that. Speaking of that, also when Mindy and I go on vacation, I'm always trying to hit up a brewery. Like that's wherever we're at, that's the first thing I type into my Apple Maps.
Nice.
Closest brewery, or if we're selecting a hotel, how close are the breweries? We just got back from Arizona.
I saw that.
That's the first thing we went to is a brewery.
Nice.
And that's how you gauge the city. And just like you said, it's great customer service. The clientele is always nice too and friendly, and they're usually like dog friendly. And like, I know it's just like people more like-minded and whatever at breweries.
Yeah.
It's a little, I'm actually gravitating a little bit more closer to dive bars as well. So like it's kind of like the opposite spectrum, but I love breweries and I also love dive bars. So
It's kind of welcoming.
yeah,
Surprisingly welcoming. People don't think dive bars would be, but
you go to a
I think
brewery
they are.
and you spend $10 on a fancy IPA, and it's great and wonderful. But I also get a lot of enjoyment on going to your local dive bar with the local townies and having a $2 PBR.
Yeah.
And people shooting pool, and it's also low key and casual. So
Yeah.
Um,
I'm with
anyway,
you.
so I identify with that as well.
Yeah, it's better than going to like chains.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's really hard to find any sort of, no offense to chains, but good customer service and a good time.
Yeah.
Really.
It's
to
like,
be
oh,
honest
I
with
went to the Chili's in Albuquerque.
Tastes just like the Dayton Chili's.
Yes. Okay, so I think we have some more questions. James Wilson, can you talk
James.
about personal projects in the works? I'll let you go first. I feel like you've already covered that a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So I know I have a friend. He has a project. His name is Ryan. It's called Fortisa Moore, and he used to be out of the Dayton area, and now he lives in, pretty sure, Washington. So he's way out west, northwest. But yeah, I'm supposed to be helping him with some music, and that's just me writing drums and recording for him.
Nice.
But nothing else really, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Besides, hopefully, Until Rust, if you guys are watching. I know Belinda's watching, so hopefully you guys are watching too. But I really want to try to record full band with Until Rust because I think their potential is pretty up there. Very good songwriters, great guitar players, and Shane's got a great voice. So that combination with good songwriting and throw a band on it, they have potential. So that really is all I have right now, personally.
Right on. And so between that and I'm sure you have a boatload of songs with Aaron Lewis that you're prepping for, and that's got to be pretty high on your list of priorities.
Yep. So, yeah. Lots of songs. I would say, just to make sure that I'm ready just in case they throw any new ones between 20 and 30. Not as many as like the cover band sets we do.
Mm-hmm.
But he does have a lot of original solo stuff. 2 or 3 albums that he's come out with.
Wow.
And his new one, Frayed at Both Ends, if you haven't heard it, it's actually really good. It's all acoustic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I've got to check it out.
Yeah. It's really, really good. Carrie and I have been digging it, not just because I landed the gig, but because it's actually very, very good.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, his songs on there are really, some of them are pretty emotional, but they have good stories behind them. He's a good storyteller.
Well, fun fact, Stained was like one of the first reasons on why I bought like a splash cymbal when I was in like middle school.
Oh, really?
I remember seeing like the music video and the drummer hitting his splash cymbal. It was about like right here. And back in the day, I had 2 mounted toms, 2 floor toms, 3 roto toms.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like a crazy setup. And then I started to get into more music and bands that just had like the one up, the one down, and like some splash cymbals and whatnot. So I remember Stained being one of those bands for me where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna switch things up a little bit and try to start experimenting with different setups. And that's just a random memory that I have.
No, that's good. I mean, you probably realize too, the more you play, that less can be more.
Yes.
And if there's less in front of you, you have to get creative with what you have. So I mean, that can really create some unique beats and some cool parts that you wouldn't have thought of because you're worried about playing everything that's in front of you.
Yes, and really just focus on keeping time.
Yeah.
The meat and potatoes, and that's mainly what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And I love it. But
what about you? Personal projects?
Personal projects, got a lot of dates with some with Billy Brown, Alyssa Oder.
Shout out Alyssa. I know Dustin said they're watching.
What's up, Alyssa? Blue Water Kings is a corporate wedding band that I'm starting to play with here in a couple weeks. Ryan Broshear is a also new to me artist that I'm going to be playing with as well.
I played with Billy when we opened for him a while ago.
Oh, really?
So that's when I first met Ryan.
That's cool.
Super nice guy.
I might have met him once in person through like Billy, I think, or 90 Proof. But this will be my first gig with him. It's just, as far as I know, it's a one-off. So I've got that in a couple weeks. Branches Church on Sunday. Any Sunday that I'm in town, I'm at Branches.
That's cool that they let you kind of come in and out.
Yeah, I'm super fortunate. That was kind of like a life-changing gig in a kind of a weird, unexpected way, is to have stability playing drums and just knowing that you have at least one gig every week that you can rely on. And through that, I've met so many nice people, and I've also started to teach some music lessons or drum lessons through some of the kids that go to the church as well. And
that's cool.
Yeah, it's just a great community. And
is that a Cincinnati church?
Yeah, it's in Loveland.
Okay, cool.
Trying to think of any other projects. I always of course I'm playing a bunch, probably the most with Damon Mitchell right now.
I saw that. So he's doing more solo stuff now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we don't have many full band gigs lined up, but just as like an acoustic duo, Damon and I have been hitting it like really hard this year, which has kind of been a little unexpected. But yeah, I think I played the most with Damon this year so far. We've got a show this Saturday at the Overlook Lodge, which is a Shining-inspired bar.
What?
Or a cocktail bar. Okay. And it's near Nine Giant, which is one of my favorite breweries. So that's this Saturday. I don't know what time, but you guys can. I'll be promoting it sometime after this.
Yeah. It's all good. That sounds like a cool place, though.
Oh,
I've never been there.
It's awesome.
But anything based on The Shining is probably cool.
Yeah,
that movie was gnarly.
We watch it every Halloween.
Nice.
Every Halloween season.
I still need to see Dr. Sleep. Haven't seen that yet.
Dr. Sleep?
Have you heard of it?
No.
It's like the what is the son's name in The Shining? Since you guys watch it so much, it doesn't matter. The son on The Shining.
Oh, okay.
It's when he's an adult, and he has like flashbacks, and they're like,
that's cool.
A lot of it has to do with the shine that he has or whatever they can see.
Right on.
And it's Ewan McGregor. It looks really good, and it's been out for a while, but I just haven't seen it yet.
That sounds sweet. I'll have to check that out.
You should.
Yeah, man, just like, you know how the freelance life is, like it comes in waves, and there's some people that like come in and out, and like Echo Wave, for example, my acoustic duo with Ben Howard.
Yeah.
There's seasons where we're playing like on a Wednesday and on a Friday, and seems like we're hitting it like pretty hard consistently, and then sometimes we'll go a few months without playing at all. But yeah, I've got my hand in a bunch of different things.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah,
I was
thanks
wondering
for
why.
asking.
Yeah, I was wondering why James was asking. I filled in for his band before the day. We played at Thompson House a little while ago. I honestly don't remember what the date was for that show, but it's a good time.
Heck yeah.
Pretty solid rock band out of Dayton.
Um, let me see here. What's the craziest thing you've seen on the road
Craziest thing.
that you can talk about in public?
Yeah, of course. I'll keep it tame. Um, so the accident I was telling you guys about earlier
Mm-hmm.
with there was a semi accident with some of the gear for Korn when I first started working for them. So we did 2 festival dates, my first 2 shows with them ever. They went really well. Then we had a little bit of time off, and then we were supposed to start our tour. And it was the Stained Summer Tour, like the amphitheater tour. When that happened, one of the semis got into an accident. There's multiple stories. I don't know which one's true of how it happened. Either way, the semi-trailer got damaged. Nobody was hurt, luckily, but a lot of the gear was injured, and it was mostly the drums. So Ray's kit, like I said earlier, lived on the risers, but they were split into 2, so there were 2 risers that come into one. And he had 2 24 by 24 inch acrylic kick drums.
24 by 24?
Huge, but they were custom, so something happens, you don't have backups.
Yeah.
So, especially with the pandemic. So this is after all of that happened. This was last summer. And the he had like, one's a dummy kick, but he uses a double kick pedal. So he does use 2 pedals, but it's 1 kick drum. He just prefers the double pedal. So the right kick drum had a puncture in it. It was probably 8 to 10 inches in diameter, like where the actual spur is on your kick drum, went all the way into the kick drum.
Wow.
And so that was there. And then the left kick drum had about a 1.5 foot crack down the side of it that if I wanted to, I could pull it apart, but I didn't because I didn't want to make it worse. And then we had 3 bars on his DW rack completely bent into a V, and then I think 5 clamps just broke in half. So like really, really heavy duty DW hardware just broken.
Must have been a major wreck.
It must have been, but I wasn't there. But my production manager at the time texted me with pictures that the driver had of the holes in the kick drum, and he was like, just so you're aware, there was an accident, and this is what we're coming into tomorrow morning. So we had lobby call at 7. We got over to the place around 8, and I was just like, okay.
Happy first day.
Yeah, let's do this. I mean, we did do 2 festival shows, so it wasn't my first, but it felt like the first because it was pre-production for the tour.
Yeah.
So a local stagehand ended up helping me find a plastics company in the area, and they fixed boat windshields, and he ended up adhesing it enough to get the tour finished, because when I tried to order drums from Pearl, because the sizes, they didn't have anything in stock. Because of the pandemic, they couldn't get it to us within 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So we tried to order it, and then they said there was some issues or whatever. So we ended up getting it a week before the end of the tour. So we used these damaged kick drums that were fixed by a boat windshield repair company for a national tour for Korn, and the drums sounded great. So we took the more damaged kick, put it for his dummy kick, took the cracked one that had like stitches almost, like little tiny pieces of acrylic that I glued with this acrylic glue that they gave me. So it looked like stitches on the drum, on the outside and the inside. And then we used that one for the main kick.
That's awesome.
And we got the tour finished. So, I mean, that was probably the craziest thing out of like not inappropriate stories that I've seen. And also it was a huge challenge for me because, I mean, I was new to that gig.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we conquered it and we got the tour done. So,
that's a great story.
It was nuts.
I'm still hung up on the 24 by 24. That's a lot of air to push.
And it was acrylic. So there's no wood to help absorb the tone at all. Yeah. So we used the Kelly shoe system. I saw you post about that the other day.
Yeah, I love that.
So we had a 91 flat with some muffling. It wasn't the same pillow or the same muffle you had, but it was similar. It was like a bow tie shaped pillow.
Okay.
That hit both heads. And then we had a 91 as well, I think, for the main. Or no, a 91 and a 52. Yeah.
Beautiful combo.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong there.
So we were able to get some good tones out of it, but it took a while for me to find like a really, really good medium when it came to my tuning, especially for the toms.
When you were playing his kit, that huge China that's like up in front, is that actually pretty difficult to hit? Like, do you have to stand up a little bit?
No, that one wasn't difficult to hit because he actually sits really high.
Okay.
So it was actually easier to hit that than it would be to hit any of his cymbals to the side, or that gong that's like way behind over here, or like the octobans that are way over here.
Mm-hmm.
He really does have to go like all the way back to be able to hit anything.
Wow.
Yeah, so he rotates a lot. He had a snare, but it wasn't right next to him. It was like way back here. So for one of his songs, he had to like do this. It was crazy. But yeah,
I believe
killer drummer. But yeah, those 24 by 24 inch acrylic drums.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I never have to work with those ever again.
I believe it.
I'll have nightmares, PTSD.
I'd imagine working with so many awesome drummers, you probably learn a lot from them.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time where you're just like, hey, like this one particular song, how do you do that? Or is it mainly, do you just observe and kind of soak it in as far as like what you take from them and learn from them?
The only guy I ever asked that was Jason Costa from All That Remains.
Mm-hmm.
And it was mostly about, he plays traditional
Oh, wow.
blasts.
That's awesome.
And I was like, how in the world do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And he actually opens his thumb up and lets it just bounce. So I mean, he doesn't have a really hard grip. He almost lets the stick do the work for him.
Yeah.
So he tells
should.
me it looks like this when he does it, when he blasts.
Huh.
I was like, that's weird. But
Interesting.
no, usually I just observe. I just watch and observe.
Okay.
Because I mean, Ray and I nerded out over drums a bunch, and I would ask him. I guess no, that's not true. I did ask him because he does do a lot of open-handed drumming. So he does a lot of left hand for his hi-hat, even though he's set up like a right-handed player. And he said having an open feel the way he practices has left room for really cool accents and more like stick tricks and like showmanship.
Yeah, I can see
So
that.
That was one thing I did ask him.
When you're drum teching, do you have to put yourself in the drummer's shoes and like ask them a bunch of questions, or do they already have like an advanced sheet of some sort, like, hey, this is how I like things set up, this is how I want my snare to sound, my side snare, and it's just all like a formality? Or I'm sure it's a mixed bag depending on the tour, but I just find it really interesting because I would imagine as a drum tech, you would have to just put yourself in their shoes and like, how do they want this to sound, based off the songs and the bands. Can you tell me a little bit about that, and how it is to serve another drummer's drum kit?
Yeah. Luckily, I've been able to always interact with the drummer. I never have to look at a sheet, and they've never had one for me. Normally, the way that it's always been has been like, I listen to the record, and I see what needs to be tone-wise for the most part, and I tune it that way.
Okay.
But some of the guys are pretty particular. Ray was particular about certain things, how he wants it tuned. He definitely wanted it linear, and for it to have like good notation between each drum. But I don't tune to a note, and I don't tune with a tune bot or with a drum dial. It's all by ear. All by ear.
That's great.
But yeah, so like Jason Costa from All That Remains, he would tell me what he wanted. Brandon from Atreyu would tell me what he wanted. Brandon with Marilyn Manson, he wasn't as particular. He's younger, but he always wanted to have a really good, loud, cracking snare, and boomy toms is what he would describe it. So
Boomy and keep it cracking.
Keep it cracking.
All right.
So certain drummers have different preferences, and like Danny from Greta Van Fleet, he wanted vintage. So I tuned more vintage style. And his snare, he didn't like hardly any muting at all. He wanted that ring that everybody wants to get rid of.
Like that steel drum ring?
Yep.
Okay.
So he had some really nice snare drums. He had a Ludwig Black Beauty that sounded amazing, but he didn't prefer it. He preferred this classic 70s, not as good in my opinion, snare.
Wow.
It was just steel. But that's what he wanted. He wanted that steel overtone. So.
And when you say vintage style tuning, is that like a little bit higher? What would you, how would you describe that to somebody?
So I would say the toms were more dead. So kind of like almost like a jazz feel.
Okay.
Or like a Bonham kit. So like toms still have like some pretty good resonance, but they're pretty dead. So easy to control for the front of house guy.
Okay.
The only thing that wasn't easy to control would be the snare with the overtones. But their sound guy knew that, so he was able to EQ accordingly for front of house.
Okay.
But in the in-ear mix and acoustically, if you sat next to the drum kit,
Mm-hmm.
you would hear that overtone,
Gotcha.
like very clear.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Do you have an in-ear mix when?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Every time I work for anybody, whether it's a matched one with the drummer, which I prefer, because
Mhm.
if they need something, I know what they need and I know if it's fixed.
That makes sense.
But there's usually a tech mix, and depending on the band, I might even have my own drum tech mix.
Okay. Is it like an X32 or is that like local level? Like do
No,
you know?
no, it depends on the band. Most
Okay.
bands at like arena or amphitheater level, they always have their own monitor rig they bring with them.
Okay.
And it depends on where they rent the PA from,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times you get a front house rig and a monitor rig
Mm-hmm.
that come with the PA.
Okay.
And sometimes even the engineers that work it or the techs that work on those come with the PA rental. Like Claire Audio rents them out from Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
among others. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
So
We're gonna wrap things up here. You've been really generous with your time, so I really appreciate that.
cool. Hopefully everybody's still awake. I'm just kidding.
Ryan, Roy, you still got that old Black Beauty? I sure did. I haven't sold it quite yet. No, I've got like a 1920s or 30s Black Beauty that I inherited from my dad.
It's gorgeous.
In a beautiful display case that my brother gave me. So
It's gorgeous.
still have it. And one of these days I'm going to record with it or make some videos. So I'm going to wrap up here with a couple more questions. So if you guys have any more questions out there, please get them in now. Let me see here. I think I'm going to go with the random rapid fire questions. So we're going to keep this short and sweet.
Type. I'll do what I can.
What band is on your bucket list to see live?
Man, Foo Fighters, rest in peace, Taylor Hawkins. I never got to see him before he passed away, ever. Every time I did a festival,
Mhm.
every time I worked, they were on a different day. I didn't get to see him.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that. I was fortunate enough to see him once, and Mindy was fortunate enough to see him once as well. But Mindy and I weren't together. I had a gig after we got tickets, and as you know, like the gig takes priority.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Mindy went, another friend went, and then I had to catch him somewhere in Indiana alone.
Gotcha.
Like I tag teamed it with I went to PASIC,
Okay.
and then I
Nice.
hit the Foo Fighter concert the night before or something.
That's
Anyway,
cool. So that would have been it, though. That would have been bucket list, for sure.
man, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's okay.
Yeah, R.I.P. Taylor. He was
Yeah, man.
one of the best.
For real.
Favorite local Dayton/Cincinnati band?
Oh, man. If I don't say Until Rust, those guys are going to beat me up. They're amazing. But since it's an acoustic duo, I won't count you guys, but you're still great in my book.
It's a different category.
It's a different category, for sure. Current or of all time?
Of all time.
Oh, wow. This is a hard one, man. But you said rapid fire. I would say Orange Willard. If anybody knows who that band was, I think they had the best groove. Their singer had some of the best vocals. Yeah, I think they were probably one of the best.
Orange Willard.
Yep.
Favorite IPA?
Man, these are hard. Let's just go with Psychopathy because that's what I'm drinking right now.
Okay.
For Ohio breweries.
Okay, right
Yeah.
on. You know, we haven't really done a shout out. We are drinking Psychopathy. I forgot to mention Mad Tree Psychopathy, and it's actually like the tropical version.
Delicious.
Very good.
Delicious.
So good, mine's gone. Metallica or Megadeth?
Megadeth.
Oh, man. If you were a drumhead, what would you be and why?
I'd be an Aquarian Super Kick 2 because they're one of the best.
All right, that's a good answer.
I take it back. I picked Metallica.
Okay. You are unforgiven.
Oh.
Oh, that was good. Okay. Marion's Pizza or La Rosa's?
Marion's.
Mindy's family's from Dayton, and
Oh,
so
nice.
we always have to get Marion's.
My girlfriend's family loves Marion's. We go there often as a group. So
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a nice family establishment.
it is indeed. Not my favorite pizza, but out of those two, I would have chose Marion's.
Fair enough. Okay. Favorite brewery?
Of all time?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say Sierra Nevada Brewery in Asheville.
I remember
one-
you telling me about
Hendersonville.
that.
probably my favorite brewery ever.
And
I've
that's
been
one
to
of the
hundreds
ones
of breweries.
we've never been to out of all the ones.
You need to make it a point to go.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're in Nevada. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Being able to fly.
I think that would be mine as well. We kind of already covered this. Remo or Evans?
I mean, I'm going to say Remo. With the exception of the HD dry. Remo, make a head that is equivalent to the HD dry snare head, and then we can talk.
That's good.
Nice.
I
I don't know if they're watching. Probably not. I mean, I hope they are.
Remo has entered the chat.
Right, right.
I wonder if they have, like, Evans has a patent or something that is...
I'm not sure, but I really think that's the best snare head, personally.
I believe it.
Yeah.
If you could play drums for any band, who would it be? Other than Aaron Lewis, of course.
Right. Man, that is a big question. I'm not going to say Foo Fighters because that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
But if he was still alive, I would have said that.
Okay.
I will say that. So, with that being out of the question, I would say Muse. That'd be so much fun to play for Muse.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you seen those guys live?
Yeah, I was fortunate to see them at Bunbury in 2017.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a great show.
We saw them at US Bank.
Oh, nice.
And maybe, I think that was it.
Really?
But it was actually weird because they didn't sell a lot of tickets. And so our original tickets were like in the nosebleeds, and they actually cut off the whole top section.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, this is Muse. But you're in a Cincinnati, which is maybe like a B or C market or something.
For them, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was a weekday. But anyways.
They headlined the night that I went to Bunbury, though, and it was packed.
I believe it.
So that's weird.
Yeah. That caught me off guard. That's the only time that's ever happened at US Bank that I've attended, at least. If you could drum tech for any band, who would it be?
We're going to go back to the Foo. It's not all about the Foo Fighters, but I would have loved to have been able to work with Taylor Hawkins. That would have been sick.
Mm-hmm.
But since that's not an option, let's just go ahead and say... I'm not going to say Metallica.
You should.
I met their drum tech. He's really cool. Because the first show I did with Greta was with Metallica in Vegas.
That's so awesome.
So gnarly. No, I would say it probably would be something in the realm of like Muse or Foo Fighters. Just I love their music so much, and I respect those drummers so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really good music, good writers.
You can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
Last rapid fire question: if you won the lottery, what would you do? Would you get your own tour bus and hire your own band?
No.
Or
No, I would keep doing the journey I'm doing. I would just buy, my dream home closer to where the gigs are going to be, probably outside of Nashville somewhere.
Mhm.
I don't know. In the Franklin area, that's where all the famous people live, I guess. But yeah, I would probably buy a really nice house and have like cool cars and stuff, but I would still play drums because it's my dream. So
great answer.
Travel the world when I'm not on tour to places I couldn't afford to go to
Mhm.
in the past. And yeah, have the dream home. That'd be it.
Awesome.
Simple.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank
you.
It looks like we've got a couple, at least one more.
Favorite all-time drummer?
Yeah. Who's your favorite all-time drummer?
That's such a hard question. You go first.
Um,
I'm going to finish my beer.
I don't know if I have like a number one favorite drummer, because that's just super difficult to answer. But John Bonham, Travis Barker, Lars Ulrich. Those guys have influenced me a bunch. I mean, there's like on a technical aspect, like the guys like Ray have been super influential,
Mhm.
and Matt Greiner is up there. I love August Burns Red.
Nice.
Aaron Gillespie's.
Of course.
Yeah.
So
My
we're
wife
saying
had to remind me.
favorite all-time drummer. So I mean, are you going according to influences? You know what I mean? So there's so many I can name too.
Yeah, well, but also the influences come at an early age when like you're
Right.
not fully developed in your musicality, and
Right.
that's when like the guys like Lars like really weigh heavy on me, because there's also a big nostalgia factor.
That makes complete sense. I mean,
But
Most people probably say that.
yeah, that's my answer at least. So
Okay.
You may take the floor. Thanks for that, James.
Yeah. A lot of these are going to be drum nerd only answers. So hopefully you know, but if not, I can tell you or show you who they are. We can get lost on YouTube for hours.
Steve Jordan.
No.
I'm just gonna. I had to throw Steve in.
Oh, I thought you were saying that for me. Yeah, Steve's great. No, I would say one of the closest to number one for me would be Chris Coleman. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. He's an amazing drummer.
Sounds familiar. Who does he play for?
I think he plays for Beck currently. But
Okay.
I know he's played with New Kids on the Block, a bunch of gospel artists,
Oh,
but
wow.
mostly does like teaching and conferences where people go to watch him play.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
he's like taking the independent route a little bit.
Yeah, and I would say he's probably one of the best in the world.
Okay.
You need to look him up. His chops will make you want to know how he got to where he is.
Wow.
He's that guy. And then Thomas Lang is another huge influence for me. Amazing drummer, just not famous, you know what I mean? But that doesn't matter.
That guy's a robot.
Yeah, his ability is insane. His creative coordination DVD was nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it and I'd put it away because I didn't want to try to
Yeah.
learn it. But yeah, so I would say out of like the unknown drummers, Chris Coleman, and then Thomas Lang. But when it comes to like the bigger ones, obviously, guys that I look up to, but I don't necessarily model my drumming after, would be like Matt Gartzka, because it's just so impressive what he can play and how good he is. Animals' Leader's drummer, if anybody knows who that band is. He's almost untouchable. I think that he is an alien.
He has great groove too, but he's also very technical
and very fast.
Yes.
Does a lot of like very, very heavy metal beats and like blast beats, but also will go right back to jazz fusion. Dude's an animal. So those three are probably up there for me for sure. But yeah, obviously Matt Greiner from August Burns Red's great. Jordan Mancina from As I Lay Dying was one of my first influences too.
Okay.
So Aaron Gillespie is another one as well when growing up in the scene.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of drummers that are kind of overlooked for how good they are because they're overshadowed by the singers or the guitar players.
Typical.
And that's usually how it was. But I mean, obviously, it's not just because he just passed away, but Taylor Hawkins was an animal of a drummer and a very, very talented musician in general.
Yep.
So influence-wise, I've covered a lot of their songs because of his drumming. And Dave Grohl, as a drummer, he did some amazing stuff with Nirvana that people don't think about because overshadowed by the singer.
Yeah.
And when he did a lot of the music with other bands like Tenacious D, some of the drumming on their albums is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then also Queens of the Stone Age when he recorded for them.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite drumming.
I
So he's up there.
love Dave so much, and I feel I really respect his playing because I feel like it is so genuine and pure to who he is and what he's all about and represents. I feel like sometimes I'm an imposter because I'm always trying to play other people's songs and maybe try to replicate like what the album is. Dave has been on his own path and his, I mean, he has influences like everyone else. And I know he even has like a lot of like Motown influences and stuff. But I just always feel like you put Dave in a room behind a drum kit and it's going to sound like Dave. No matter what he plays, no matter what style, his voice is going to shine through. And that is extremely difficult to acquire as a drummer. And I feel like we're all still trying to find that, and maybe it's always something that we're always going to be chasing. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I just really appreciate how he has his own voice, and that's something really special.
Yeah, man. Dave Grohl is definitely he has a signature sound that a lot of people can't replicate. And if you can, that's cool, but it's not Dave. It's just something about it.
I always think like, what would Dave Grohl do? And even when I'm like approaching a new gig, it's like, okay, Aaron, be Aaron Roy behind the drums, so you're as comfortable as possible, and you don't have the imposter syndrome, and you're just attacking the drums the way that you naturally feel how to play them and want to play them, as opposed to, what did the previous drummer do at this part, and what did the record do? And you want to be, there's always a hybrid of like what the record does, but also what feels natural, and it depends on the gig and how much freedom you have with that as well. So there's
Right. I mean, making it your own is important. So like to bring it all kind of back, this new gig that I have, they've been fortunate enough to tell me to make it my own. So
that's awesome.
I'm listening to their live show. I'm listening to the songs they have recorded. I'm gauging what I need to do according to that. Obviously, it's got to be the same tempos. We intro songs the same way. I got to keep the same beats for the most part, which doing a lot of cover stuff that you have done, you understand you have to be at least, there's a certain feel that you have to have.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I mean, there's still a way to make it your own voice behind the kit. So I'm excited that they told me that. They're like, we don't want you to tune it according to the record. We want you to tune how you tune. We want you to play how you play, but obviously still make it so he knows where we're at and what we're doing. So that's going to be kind of cool.
Well, I think it's really cool that they've given you that freedom, and that also has to take maybe a little bit of the nerves and anxiety away from having a new gig like that. You could at least come in feeling like you're still in your own skin.
Yeah. I'm ready to get started. I think the anticipation is what's killing me. I just want to do it. I mean, I've been jamming and practicing. I'm ready right now, but I mean, obviously, because of the time, hopefully that I keep putting in, it'll just get even better.
Right. No doubt, and I'm sure it's going to take a handful of shows, even just before you really start to get comfortable and figure out your own groove. And that could take quite a while. Yeah,
and I'm not the only new member, so it's going to be interesting for a few of us. So there's two or three other guys that are new as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna browse here, see if there's any. What's up, Clutch? Thanks for tuning in again, man. Karen, hello. Good to see you.
Most durable sticks. Did you see that question?
Mike, I'm still scrolling here. Most durable sticks. Since I'm still scrolling and I haven't seen that, I'll let you take that.
So I've played quite a few.
Thanks, Mark.
Vader. I'm not saying all the comments, but it might be because I'm not friends with some of these people. Vader was okay, and then I switched to Vic Firth for a little while, and then to ProMark for a little while, and now I'm back to Vic Firth. I don't know if it's just because of how consistent they are, but I had some imbalances and some inconsistency with the build for some of the ProMark sticks. No offense to D'Addario, who owns ProMark, but I've not really had any issues or inconsistency with Vic Firth compared to ProMark.
Right on.
But I loved the fire grain forward grip that ProMark had, and I wish Vic Firth had that. But I'm totally fine with just the regular old school classic 5B hickory sticks. And I know Aaron has signature sticks of his own size that he chose, and he can explain that. But I think Vic Firth is the best personally.
I will agree with that. I love Vic Firth. I use the X8Ds, and I've been using the custom X8Ds for maybe 5 years or so. And before that, I was actually using the nylon metals.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so I was just bashing away. That was like when I was in bottom line, and I was just trying to hit as hard and heavy and like bottom as possible. And then through my development of playing with more country style artists, and the goal isn't to hit as hard and fast as possible. I had to get away from the metal sticks, the metal end. And then I found that the X8Ds were a nice compromise, that they held up really well to me. I'm a heavy hitter. They held up really well, but at the same time, I'm not swinging with tree trunks.
Right.
And then my last order with Vic Firth, I've actually really gravitated towards the X7As. So they're basically like an X8D. Actually, the X8D is more like the 7As, but it's got a longer throw, so it's not as like bottom heavy. So the shaft is the weight is distributed a little bit differently than the X8D, but it's very close. This like the same diameter. I think it's the same length, which is like 6.5 or 16.5. anyways, I feel
standard
like I'm
is 16, right?
somewhere around there.
Okay.
But like I was telling you earlier, I love the Questlove, like his signature sticks, and those are 17. And honestly, if I could get those, but have my custom print on them, I probably would. But I think the closest that I'm like really finding that I truly enjoy, that is great with all the different styles that I have to play with, between the rock and the country and some hip hop, some of this Motown, especially like I'm learning a lot more pop songs now because of this corporate wedding band that I'm going to be playing in. So it's literally like all these different genres, and you have to have one stick.
Mm-hmm.
That's good for all of that, and it's really difficult. So right now, X8Ds and the Extreme 7As are my go-to.
Nice.
Hey, Damon, thanks for tuning in, man. John, Mark, thank you. You know, my buddy Mark Merkoffer, he's a big Aaron Lewis fan, so he'll
Cool.
be seeing you this summer, I'm sure.
I'll see you out there.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna end this with jamming, and
Cool.
then thank you all for tuning in. Please feel free to check in on the next Beats and Brews. Also, Dave, where can we find you on social media?
Instagram, David Nestor Drums. On Facebook, David Nestor Drums. And I don't have Twitter anymore, so let's just stick with those. So David Nestor Drums. That's all you got to search for.
And
You'll find me. Oh, YouTube.
And
Yeah.
you do remote recording as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I do offer that. You just hit me up on any kind of messenger, Instagram or Facebook, for recording if you guys need anything, and let me know. I would love to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here tonight.
Thanks for
it's
having
been
me.
a pleasure. We've been internet friends for a few years.
Right.
And this is like, I think, our first official time hanging out
It is.
and really meeting. And it's been a great pleasure to hang out with you. And we've shared some of the same gigs. And I know that I refer you to people and you've referred me to people. And it's a beautiful thing to finally hang out and play some
Yeah.
drums and drink some beer.
Of course, man. Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll come back. Oh, we're jamming.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
All right, I'll let you start with this, the first groove again.
Hooray, drums.
Yay, Dave Nestor. Everybody go follow him. Thank you
Yeah.
all for tuning in. And we'll see you next time we decide to do this.
Yes.
Take care.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye.